the best version of Christian Watson or the best version of Jaire Alexander? Left guard or right guard? We answer your questions on today's Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. We are taking your questions today, and I want to start with this one because it was a really interesting question to me that allowed me to talk about something else that I already wanted to talk about. So perfect. Ryan McDowell on Twitter asks, what would be more important for the team this year? Jaire is 2020 Jaire, or Christian Watson plays like second half of his rookie year for the whole year? So the answer to me was at first obvious. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, this is actually closer than I thought. But I still ultimately landed on Christian Watson being second half of his rookie year, Christian Watson for the full year. And the reason is mostly just because even if Jaire Alexander is awesome, coverage is a weak link system. And so if Jaire is awesome, but they can't get Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine and Kalen King and Corey Ballantyne opposite him to play at a high enough level, teams are just going to throw at those guys. And so yes, you can lock Jaire on one side with that against that guy and send safety help opposite, and that's useful, but that locks you into playing a certain kind of way. What Christian Watson looking like a guy who is going to, break records as a rookie. Offense is more reliable, it is more consistent. And one receiver that is unguardable is just more valuable to your offense than one corner, precisely because of this issue that we've talked about if you're an everydayer, like now hundreds of times, and that is it's not how good your best player is defensively in the secondary, it's how good your worst player is. And so both would be good is the answer. And the cool thing is I don't think Jaire is just incapable of now playing at that level anymore. I don't have any reason to believe that's the case. Why would I believe that? He's still a relatively young player. He looks, when he's healthy, to be someone who has all the movement skills that he once had that made him an all-pro, a two-time all-pro. He seems rejuvenated by this offseason, by bringing in Xavier McKinney, by changing the defensive coordinator. That was probably a big one. And I have no reason to believe that he's not going to play his best football this year, as long as he can stay healthy. That's the other part of this. But you don't need 2020 Jaire for this defense to be good. Like 2021 Jaire would be fine for when he was out there. 2022 Jaire would be fine when he was out there. That would be a really good, useful player for this defense. Second half of the year 2022 Christian Watson, like we just did a show. We just did the show. He's the X factor. If he's that guy for a full season, like the Packers can go to a Super Bowl. They can win a Super Bowl. They can beat Patrick Mahomes. They can beat the 49ers. Like they can beat any team in the league if that's the version of Christian Watson that you're getting. And they prove that because with Christian Watson, they beat the Chiefs and they beat the Lions. And they should have beat the 49ers. We don't have to rehash that. One of the reasons why I wanted to start it with this, though, is we got some information now about what's going on with Christian Watson. And I don't want to delve too far into trying to play doctor and trying to diagnose from afar and all that stuff. So we're not going to do that. But not even because that makes it seem like now I'm going to do the thing that I said I wasn't going to do. So I'm not going to do that. What we found out was Christian Watson had some asymmetrical strength in his body. Not uncommon. In fact, I would venture to say most people have this issue because your body doesn't work perfectly efficiently all the time. And so your body compensates. And the more elite level athlete you are, the better your body is at compensating. Now, that also means it puts you, because those levers are moving faster and there's more stress and tension on your body, you're at higher risk for injury because you're moving at 100 miles an hour. The warm-ups that the Packers are doing has changed in a significant way with a new conditioning and strength staff. A significant way. Position groups are doing different drills. The guys that need that full, like we need to go full out run, those guys do different warm-ups. The warm-up is longer. It's more dynamic. It is in a lot of ways based on at least, the way that we think about modern athleticism and the way that it's trained. It's a more modern approach. Not finding this issue. And Christian Watson went to get scanned and they found, they're able to pinpoint with the technology. It's really cool. The specifics of the strength discrepancy. And it was significant. What is startling about that being the genesis of hamstring issues, and that you hope that it's that and not the other way around, and there's that part of this too. But let's say that is the answer. That is about as basic an answer as it could have been, and I find it hard to believe that the old strength and conditioning staff didn't think of that. But it kind of seems like that's exactly what happened. And the reason that I find that hard to believe is I am not a professional athlete. You guys know that. I don't even pretend to be someone who's like engaging in high level, like football I don't do that anymore. I used to, I don't anymore. I still lift and train and like do things, but I'm not trying to play football. I haven't played 5-on-5 full court basketball in a while. I love it. I haven't done it in a while. But like I had to go to physical therapy recently. I see a chiropractor. We talk about symmetry all the time. Like anytime you have discomfort or you have to go in for some sort of treatment, these are things that are discussed. So for a professional football team to have an athlete who's dealing with chronic issues, to not have identified this sooner, if that is in fact what happened, and we don't know that this didn't happen. Maybe they just weren't able to attack the treatment the right kind of way. But the way that it's being presented to us from the outside, it seems like this is novel information to them. I can't tell you how wild that would be if that's true. Again, we don't know if that's true. But when the strength and conditioning staff was let go, some people thought that was scapegoating. There's only so much they can do in season because these guys are not at the facility all off season. That's when the work has to be done. They come in for training camp and then it's about maintenance. Once you show up in the building, it's about maintenance. It's not about body comp. It's not about preparation. It's about maintenance and keeping your body in good enough physical shape all season. I don't know if this is what happened. I don't know that that's a compelling case anymore. Like if they missed this, and again, this is a hypothetical, we do not know. But if they did, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And the difference in the stretching to what is, again, a much more modern way of thinking about it. Like if you're still doing the stretches that I used to do in high school to get ready for football. Like, there's new ways to do it. And the reason is because we have better information now about how the science works. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but that's the point. The fact that I know some of this stuff based on my limited experience as a non-athlete, let me give myself a little credit, a non-elite athlete, is in some ways a damning indictment of what we saw. If this is what it took, it's tough. That's tough stuff. That's tough stuff. Again, we don't know. So I want to be very clear because I don't want to unfairly blame someone for something. But if that's the case, if this was new information, it's a really bad look. It's a really bad look. All right, more of your questions coming up in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, it's at prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More of your questions here in just a second on Locked On Packers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, more of your questions. Noah Seligman, a longtime follower and listener, says he sent me a couple versions of this and clarified. He wants to know, with the scheme, does left guard or right guard mean more? Understanding offensive tackle means more than offensive guard, and the salaries indicate as such. But what do the Packers want to do with Jacobs and Lloyd? Does it matter more on left guard or right guard? So the old way of thinking about offensive line play was the right guard and right tackle were your run blockers because offenses are right-handed. And so you're more likely to run to the right. So the running back could hold the ball in the right hand. I mean, that is legit what we're doing. And because when you're going to run a play action pass, the quarterback is dropping back to the right. His vision is to the right. So that is the old school way of thinking about this. I don't want to say it's done because there is still value in blindside tackle over front side tackle. You need both. You need both guys to be good at pass protection, given the spread world we live in, all the shotgun, it's not just going to be play action, though I think offenses like the one Green Bay runs make life easier on your tackles because of the play action. Guys can't just pin their ears back and come get the quarterback. It's even less important with guards because they're both kind of right in the field of vision of the quarterback. And so, yes, the left guard technically more often is going to be in a quarterback's blind spot here, especially if they're working a progression to their right-hand side. Some quarterbacks like to throw left. So in terms of the run game, that to me is even less of a thing. Now, you expect running backs at this level to be able to run left and run right, unless you have, a Zoolander running back. So I don't know that the Packers are looking at this like, oh, you need to have a better run blocker on one side or the other. makes sense to have Elton Jenkins as your left guard because you want your better pass protector on the left side. Like the marginal difference in pass protection value means that putting that guy on the left side makes more sense. But both of those guys have to be quality pass protectors or you're in trouble. Like the weak link system of offensive line has only been amplified by the spread offenses. Because now defenses are going, we're scheming you up for one-on-ones across the board. We're not just letting you like have a center who can just help off. That world is over. We're going to make you with all of your guys pass protect. So I don't know that there's a big difference anymore. I don't know that the run game is really going to impact that. Now the question is, and maybe this is what you meant, if you're going to move toward more of gap scheme run calls and you're going to be pulling guards, do you have a preference hand-wise on how that works? Well, I guess maybe, but it's going to be more about the comfort of the running backs. And I don't see any reason to believe that one of them has a preference one way or the other. Does Jordan Love have a preference? Does he like to turn one way to hand the ball off versus another? If it's a reverse pivot, does he have a preference? If it is a play action pass, does he have a preference? So it's all going to be about fitting this to your players. I don't think a scheme difference there really makes a dramatic difference because you should be able to run any of your, just like inside outside zone, you should be able to run to both sides. If you want to run gap scheme runs, power runs, the idea is that you should be able to run them to both sides, which means you want your guards, your centers, your tackles, whoever's going to be on the move here to be equally adept at doing that. So you don't, hey, if we want to run this gap run, we can only run it to the right. No, that hamstrings you. That is death. That cannot be the case. So I don't think there's a lot there. But this is all going to come down to preference of players. So again, some quarterbacks, they would rather turn one direction. Some quarterbacks like to play action a certain kind of way. And so maybe you want to major more in that kind of run so that it much more mirrors run game, pass game. But in terms of just in a vacuum for the scheme, does one thing matter more than the other? I really don't think it does. All right, from Mark Trova, most likely to be cut, Dylan Davis. This one is pretty easy to me. It's Andre Dillard because the guarantees are low. Tyler Davis is coming off of a serious injury, season-ending injury. You bring him back. You bring back A.J. Dillon. Andre Dillard is there to be backup. And so are Dillon and Davis, but he's there to be like, hey, if these guys don't look good in camp, like if Jacob Monk and Sean Ryan and some of these guys don't look good in camp, like, you're here. I can see if Donovan Jennings looks really good and the rookie class looks good, you just say, hey, Andre Dillard, it was nice. Thanks for playing, but so long. We don't need you. I don't think that's out of the question at all. I would be very, even if Marshawn Lloyd looks great in camp, A.J. Dillon is going to have a role in this team. You just need the bodies. And they have an obsession with Tyler Davis that I don't understand. They're pretty flush at tight end, but they made an effort to bring Tyler Davis back. So I don't know what to tell you. He's going to make the team. I think of this group, Dillard is the guy where you're going, I don't know. So, look, does that make me think that it's the right call because the Packers are going to do that? No. Everydayers know how I feel about Tyler Davis. I don't. I don't. So he's going to make the team, though. We're going to finish up in just a second with your questions here on Locked On Packers. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every great financial whiz uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments, and a comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors. It's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insights to look at your wealth in its entirety. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. I want to finish up here, a little quick conversation on Locked On Packers, but Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Last question here is one that I'm really excited to dig into, and it's something that I think we're going to talk about more over the course of the offseason. And it's from Aaron Picard. He said, I know it's a 4-2-5 world, but when the Packers are lined up in a true 4-3-4, who's getting the reps at Sam? Hopper seems like a perfect fit, gets 20% of the D reps, and can excel on teams. Pause, phrasing, be cool. That last one's for Jen. So this is interesting, and I've thought about this. The thing is, I don't think we are going to see a true Sam linebacker with this defense. I just don't. I'm not sure we will, for more than 10 or 12 reps all year, see a true 4-3. I'm extrapolating a little bit here. But they truly don't have a Sam linebacker type on the roster. And so what that leads me to believe, now it's possible. Let's say Edgerrin Cooper wins the will linebacker job. And this is the way I'm phrasing it because, as we talked about the other day, when Quay Walker came off the field and Edgerrin Cooper came on, it was so that he could play the will and Isaiah McDuffie could play the Mike. It would make sense that if that's how it shakes out, if Cooper, or frankly, if Quay, but I think more likely if Cooper wins that will job, that they could play some true 3 off-ball linebacker looks with those 3 guys. That seems the most likely. We've seen Quay Walker walked up on the edge. Some of that. In fact, a couple of years ago, Joe Barry even experimented with Oren Burks in some 3 linebacker stuff. That was if I recall correctly. That was some 4-3 kind of experimentation with Joe Barry as well. And might have even been 5 true linebackers on the field because of the outside linebackers. It's Rashawn Gary, it's Preston Smith, and then 3 off-ball linebackers. But what I think is more likely, I think this investment at safety is tipping their hand. I think when they want to play that way, when they want to play quote unquote big, when they play base, I think the biggest they're going to get in most cases. Now, maybe at the end of the game, you're trying to get a stop because the team is in their 4-minute offense, and you're just like, you have to stop. They're gonna run the ball 3 straight times, and if they get a first down, you're done. Like that might be a different or low red zone. You might see it. But I think all of these safeties tells us, and Jim Nagy thinking Keaton Oladapo is a dime linebacker. I think that suggests to us that when the Packers want to go big, what they will do is they will take the nickel corner off the field and put a safety on it. So it will be, in essence, big nickel. So there will be an extra defensive back, but that extra defensive back will be a safety, whether it's Evan Williams, Bottled and Bond, or Keaton Oladapo, or John Bullard. I think a little less likely that it's him, but because then you're really, he's by body type, he's a nickel. So you have your two linebackers plus your safety plus your two safeties. Now you're in big nickel. I think that's about as big as they're going to want to get play in and play out. So against the 49ers, against 12 personnel, you play those guys. Or you could go to, some penny looks. I think that could make sense too. You want to play a 5-2? That could be in play as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that was against teams that want to run the ball, especially those outside zone teams that have the beef to do it. But I just don't think we're going to see. And I don't want to belittle the question either, because it's an interesting question. It's something that, again, I've been thinking about ever since the draft, because they didn't get someone who fits that profile. Like when the Packers didn't have a linebacker to stop the run a couple years ago, they signed Antonio Morrison, who's just like a psycho, fly downhill in the best way possible. By the way, I want my linebackers to be a little psycho and hit dudes just as a backup, because in those certain situations, that's what you want. Dimitri Goodson, like those kinds, even Blake Martinez to a degree. They don't have anyone like that. So they don't have anyone, first of all, like that. But also, they didn't draft, in the two linebackers that they draft, they didn't draft someone who really fits that mold as a Sam linebacker. So that leads me to believe, but they did draft a bunch of safeties. That leads me to believe. So I'm extrapolating here, but it also fits with the way the modern NFL looks. That leads me to believe that the biggest they want to play is this big nickel look. And that is something that essentially becomes an extra starter position. Now you're not starting, you maybe only play 20, 30% of snaps. But those are real, like you're probably going to play that big nickel more than you play true dime. Because teams just kind of live in nickel now. Even on 3rd and 12, you're playing nickel. Now maybe 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18, 3rd and 20, like you're playing dime. But if you go back and you look at the dispersal of dime, like Mike Pettin played it a bunch because Mike Pettin played it a bunch. Joe Barry wanted to live in nickel. Now we'll see we don't know what Jeff Hafley's tendencies are going to be. So that's part of this too. But that is the answer to me. That the Sam will be no Sam. There just isn't going to be one, because they're just going to play with their big nickel on the field at all times when they want to play quote unquote big. We'll see. I'm excited to see. I can't wait to see. We'll be back next week. A ton of great stuff coming next week. Jason Hirschhorn, America's Guest. Maddie Hudek from Tulane to talk about Michael Pratt. Joey Van Zumeren to talk about Tyron Hopper. We got Matt Ryan on the show to talk about Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shannon. It is a What's Next series. What's next for Matt LaFleur? That'll be a fun one. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. Go check us out on YouTube. All the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, all the good stuff. And, some of the stuff that is a time waster too. Sometimes you need a time waster. So you can stay Locked On Packers.